Hey everybody, it's me, Audio Bible Lady. We are going to just jump right in today because I have a time constraint. I'm very sneezy. I'm going to try not to sneeze while I'm reading. But I didn't want to let any more time lapse as we continue on our journey in the book of Genesis. So far, we've seen the beginning. As we jokingly said, yes, it was the Big Bang. Bang, in the sense of God spoke and bang, it happened. So we learned about that, and then we learned about how the serpent came and was deceitful. He even used God's words and twisted them up, confusing Eve, and Eve thought she knew better than God, apparently, and decided to try this fruit that she was told not to touch, and she gave some to her husband, who had been right there with her, and we see them being vacated from the Garden of Eden. We are going to start in today on the first children of Adam and Eve. They have Cain and Abel, and I'm sure many of you know the story of Cain and Abel, but we're going to jump right into the text here and see what happens. We're going to start in chapter 4, and I'm reading from the New Living Translation. It says, "Now Adam had sexual relations with his wife Eve, and she became pregnant. When she gave birth to Cain, she said, 'With the Lord's help, I have produced a son.' Later, she gave birth to his brother and named him Abel. When they grew up, Abel became a shepherd, while Cain cultivated the ground. When it was time for the harvest, Cain presented some of his crops as a gift to the Lord. Abel also brought a gift, the best of the firstborn lambs from his flock. The Lord accepted Abel and his gift, but he did not accept Cain and his gift. This made Cain very angry, and he looked dejected." Now, at first glance, I know you're probably saying, "Melissa, hurry up, skip to the exciting part." I'm not going to do it because I don't want to miss this here. In the beginning here, we're seeing how Cain was a cultivator of the ground. That wasn't the issue. That wasn't the problem. And he gave a gift to the Lord. It just says, hey, he grabbed up a gift from what he cultivated and he gave it to the Lord. Versus his brother, Abel. And it says, yeah, he was a shepherd, but that I don't think was the big thing of it either. It was that he brought the best to the Lord. He brought the finest things that he had. So he recognized God for who he was and that he was the giver of all things. That's how I read this. And he gave him the best, the first, the greatest out of what he had back to God. And I think that's really important to remember because that is even now in our daily life. We can get a good check and balance on our relationship with him by viewing where he is in our life. What placing does he have? Do we have him as number one? Do we acknowledge him as the giver of everything that we have in life, whether it be material or health or children, joy even, whatever that may be? Do we recognize him as the giver of all good things and then give back accordingly to him? Just an interesting little part that I know a lot of people just read right through because they want to get to the other part where, we'll get there. It says, "Why are you so angry?" the Lord asked. "Why do you look so dejected? You will be accepted if you do what is right. But if you refuse to do what is right, then watch out. Sin is crouching at the door, eager to control you. But you must subdue it and be its master. One day, Cain suggested to his brother, "Let's go out in the field." And while they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him. After the Lord asked Cain, "Where is your brother? Where is Abel?" Do you think God didn't know where Abel was? He did. He's giving him every opportunity here. Again, like in the Garden of Eden when we say, "Where were you guys?" And they're like, "Oh, we were hiding. We were naked. We didn't want you to see us naked." You know what I mean? He's doing the same thing. He already knew why they were hiding in the garden. He already knows here why Cain, where Cain's brother is and what Cain has done. He just wants Cain to say it for himself. But the Lord said, "What have you done? Listen, your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. Now you are cursed and banished from the ground, which has swallowed your brother's blood. No longer will the ground yield good crops for you, no matter how hard you work. From now on, you will be a homeless wanderer on the earth." So he's saying, hey, I'm not playing this game with you. I know what happened. I know that you've killed your brother, and there is consequence for this. Cain replied to the Lord, "My punishment is too great for me to bear. You have banished me from the land and from your presence. You have made me a homeless wanderer. Anyone who finds me will kill me." The Lord replied, "No, for I will give a sevenfold punishment to anyone who kills you." Then the Lord put a mark on Cain to warn anyone who might try to kill him. So Cain left the Lord's presence and settled in the land of Nod, east of Eden. I'm going to assume from what I'm reading here that he no longer had that contact with the Lord, that open dialogue where, the Lord's coming and he's talking to them as they're working or communicating with them, that he's being cast out from the presence even further than they already had been. And that's got to be heartbreaking. Like, I can't even imagine. It's a harsh punishment. It would almost be easier, I would think, to be killed. But this is what the Lord saw as best, and we know that what God does is right and just. Cain had sexual relations with his wife. So now Cain does marry. He does have a wife. And she becomes pregnant and gives birth to Enoch. Then Cain founded a city, which he named Enoch after his son. Enoch had a son named Irad. Irad became the father of Mehuel. Mehuel became the father of Methuselah. Methuselah became the father of Lamech. Lamech married 2 women. Maybe the first Mormon. I don't know. The first was named Adah, and the second was Zillah. Adah gave birth to Jabal, who was the first of those who raised livestock and lived in tents. His brother's name was Jabal, first of all, who played the harp and the flute. So now we see musical instruments coming into our story. Lamech's other wife, Zillah, gave birth to a son named Tubal-Cain. He became an expert in forging tools of bronze and iron. Tubal-Cain had a sister named Naamah. One day Lamech said to his wives, "Adah and Zillah, hear my voice. Listen to me, you wives of Lamech. I have killed a man who attacked me, a young man who wounded me. If someone who kills Cain is punished 7 times, then the one who kills me will be punished 77 times. Woo! And now we're going to jump back to Adam and Eve for a second here, so don't get confused, okay? Adam had sexual relations with his wife again, and she gave birth to another son. She named him Seth, for she said, "God has granted me another son in the place of Abel, whom killed Cain." When Seth grew up, he had a son and named him Enoch. At that time, people first began to worship the Lord by name. So in this time frame, they're now starting to worship the Lord by name. And there seems almost to be like a resetting of some order or something going on here, at least for a little while. On to chapter 5, just because we have time. This is a written account of the descendants of Adam. When God created human beings, he made them to be like himself. He created them male and female, and he blessed them and called them human. When Adam was 130 years old, he became the father of a son who was just like him in his very image. He named his son Seth. After the birth of Seth, Adam lived another 800 years, and he had other sons and daughters. Adam lived 930 years, and then he died. When Seth was 105 years old, he became the father of Enoch. Can you imagine having kids that late in life? No way! But apparently their lifespans and their year spans we're seeing are very different than what ours are today. After the birth of Enoch, Seth lived another 807 years, and he had other sons and daughters. Seth lived 912 years, and then he died. When Enoch was 90 years old, he became the father of Canaan. After the birth of Canaan, Enoch lived another 815 years, and he had other sons and daughters. When Canaan was 70 years old, he became the father of Mahal. After the birth of Mahal, Canaan lived another 840 years, and he had other sons and daughters. Canaan lived 910 years, and then he died. When Mahal was 65 years old, he became the father of Jared. After the birth of Jared, Mahal lived another 830 years, and he had other sons and daughters. Mahal lived 895 years, and then he died. When Jared was 162 years old, he became the father of Enoch. After the birth of Enoch, Jared lived another 800 years, and he had other sons and daughters. Jared lived 962 years, and then he died. When Enoch was 65 years old, he became the father of Methuselah. After the birth of Methuselah, Enoch lived in close fellowship with God for another 300 years, and he had other sons and daughters. Enoch lived 365 years, walking in close fellowship. We're getting a different notice here of Enoch. Enoch, we're not just hearing about which kids he had, we're also hearing that he apparently had a really great relationship with God. He was walking in fellowship with him, in obedience to him. And they're noting it, so they want to make sure that your attention is drawn to that. That is why we are going through this list right now of names and years and sons and daughters, is particularly for Enoch. Okay, so Enoch lived walking in close fellowship with God. Then one day he disappeared because God took him, and that means that he was just caught up to the Lord. And I think that that's amazing. To note that he did not die the natural way that everybody else did. He was not murdered or anything like that. He walked in close fellowship. He was in good standing with the Lord. He was counted as righteous, so to speak, and was caught up to be with him. When Methuselah was 187 years old, he became the father of Lamech. After the birth of Lamech, Methuselah lived another 782 years, and he had other sons and daughters. Methuselah lived 969 years, and then he died. When Lamech was 182 years old, he became the father of a son. Lamech named his son Noah. You see where we're going? For he said, "May he bring us relief from our work and the painful labor of our farming, this ground that the Lord has cursed." After the birth of Noah, Lamech lived another 595 years, and he had other sons and daughters. Lamech lived 777 years, and then he died. By the time Noah was 500 years old, he was the father of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Next time that we hop in here, we will go on to see what happens after Noah is born and has his sons, and what is the state of the world at this time. We've already seen that Enoch has been caught up with the Lord. Why was he caught up with the Lord? Was the world getting worse? Was it getting better? What was going on during this time? That's kind of where we're going to pick up next time. I hope you'll join me, and as always, thanks for spending this time in the Word of God with me. I hope you've enjoyed what you've heard, and you've learned something new today. Love you. Bye.